You say you don't have time. It sounds honest, it sounds harmless, it even sounds responsible. But what if it's none of those things? What if every time you say, I don't have time, what you're really saying is, that's not important to me? And what if saying that out loud to yourself was the most honest, painful, and freeing thing you could ever do? Lao Tzu once said, time is a created thing. To say I don't have time is to say I don't want to. That idea isn't just poetic, it's dangerous. Because once you understand it, you can never lie to yourself the same way again. Think about all the times you've said it. I don't have time to work out. I don't have time to read. I don't have time to build the life I say I want. You didn't mean it as an excuse, but it was. You didn't realize it, but in that moment, you were giving yourself permission to delay your future. And you did it with confidence, because not having time always sounds justifiable. But the truth is, we all get the same 24 hours. The difference isn't in how much time you have, it's in what you do with it. The difference is in what you avoid, what you delay, what you run from. That's the real reason this quote matters. It doesn't accuse you, it invites you. It pulls back the curtain and says, look, your life is not out of your control. You just haven't been owning it yet. And that's okay. Most people don't. Most people live like they're victims of a schedule they designed themselves. They blame the clock for decisions they never made. They call it a lack of time, when it's really a lack of clarity, a lack of direction, or a lack of courage. So before this video says anything else, let's make one thing clear. This isn't about productivity. This is about truth. You don't need another calendar hack. You don't need a color-coded planner. You need to see yourself honestly for the first time in a long time. Because once you stop lying to yourself about time, everything else changes. You stop making excuses for what you haven't built. You stop resenting people who use their time better. You stop wishing life would slow down and start stepping into the moment fully, without guilt or hesitation. You don't need more time. You need to start telling the truth about what you're doing with the time you already have. And that starts right now. Time is not what you think it is. It's not this fixed, rigid thing ticking down in the background. It's not a resource you run out of like gas in a car. Time is fluid, elastic, subjective. Some days fly by, others drag. One conversation can feel like a second or a lifetime. So what makes the difference? Your attention. Albert Einstein called time an illusion, not because clocks aren't real, but because our experience of time isn't consistent. It changes depending on how present we are, how connected we feel, how deeply we're engaged with what we're doing. Think about it. An hour laughing with someone you love feels like nothing. But 5 minutes sitting in a room you don't want to be in can feel unbearable. Time bends around emotion, meaning, and presence. It stretches or shrinks based on what you're giving your energy to. So when you say, I didn't have time, what you really mean is, it didn't matter enough for me to give it my full attention. And maybe that's fair. Not everything deserves your time. Not everything should. But if you're going to live fully, you have to get honest about the difference between what's stealing your time and what you're handing it to willingly. The problem isn't that you don't have time. The problem is that you don't see time clearly. You see it as this enemy, something running out, something you don't control. But that's not true. Time doesn't happen to you. You participate in it. You shape it by what you focus on, by how you show up, by the level of presence you bring to the moment. And the less present you are, the faster life slips through your fingers. Not because it's moving faster, but because you're barely there to experience it. You're not in traffic. You're checking messages. You're not at dinner. You're thinking about work. You're not living your life. You're watching it pass in the reflection of a screen. That's not a time issue. That's a presence issue. So the question isn't, how do I get more time? The real question is, where is my attention going? Because your attention is the container your time lives in. If your attention is scattered, your life feels rushed. If your attention is fractured, your days feel empty. But when your attention is clear, your time expands. You feel the moment. You remember it. You actually live it. And that's the shift you need to make. From chasing the time to claiming it. From fearing the clock to focusing your presence. From managing minutes to mastering meaning. Because time isn't running out. Your focus is. You say you're busy. You probably are. But the question is, with what? Busy sounds like a good excuse. It makes you feel important. It makes others back off. It makes you feel like your time is in high demand. But there's a dangerous side to busy, because it becomes a shield, a way to avoid the things you don't want to face, a way to run from the things you say matter most. Most people don't use busy to describe a life filled with purpose. They use it to explain why they've stopped being present, why they haven't written the book, why they haven't made the call, why they haven't looked in the mirror and asked the hard questions. Busy is noise, and noise is comfortable. It gives you something to do, so you don't have to feel what you're really feeling. It gives you a script, so you don't have to write your own. You can say, I'm just overwhelmed, and keep ignoring the truth that maybe you've chosen overwhelm because it's easier than discipline, easier than change, easier than accountability. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." He didn't say this in a time of social media or streaming platforms. He said it in ancient Rome, which means the tendency to stay busy while avoiding meaning is nothing new. But now, it's just louder, constant, always in your pocket. You check your email 50 times a day. You reply to messages that don't need responses. You scroll through other people's lives instead of living your own. You fill every empty moment with something, anything, so you don't have to be still. Because stillness is uncomfortable. Stillness makes you think. Stillness makes you feel. Stillness holds up a mirror and asks, what are you actually doing with your life? And that's the question you've been avoiding. Being busy is easy. It requires no vision, just motion. You can be busy building someone else's dream, busy proving something to people who aren't even watching, busy trying to escape your own thoughts. But busy isn't the same as productive. Busy doesn't mean aligned. Busy doesn't mean fulfilled. So if you feel like you never have enough time, maybe the problem isn't time. Maybe the problem is that you're crowding your life with things that mean nothing, while quietly starving the things that mean everything. You are not a victim of your schedule. You are the one who built it. You said yes to the meetings. You said yes to the distractions. You allowed the noise, and you can change it. You don't need to be less busy. You need to be more honest. Because once you stop pretending that busyness equals purpose, you can finally make space for what does. And when that happens, your life stops feeling like a to-do list and starts becoming something real. Every time you say, "I'll do it later," something inside you quietly fades. Maybe it's small at first, a passing thought, a flicker of guilt, a moment of awareness you brush off because life is too full right now. You tell yourself, "It can wait." But you say that again tomorrow and the next day. And before you know it, the thing that once pulled at your soul is gone. You didn't lose it. You delayed it to death. Putting things off feels harmless. It feels smart even, responsible. You tell yourself, "I'll start when things calm down. I'll begin when I have more time, more energy, more support." But what if later is the most dangerous word in your vocabulary? Heraclitus said, "You cannot step into the same river twice." The water is always moving. So is life. And the version of you who wanted to start something today, they might not be here tomorrow. They'll be a little more tired, a little more distracted, a little more resigned. You think you're preserving energy. You're not. You're losing momentum. You think you're protecting your future. You're not. You're trading it for comfort in the present. Every delay is a silent deal you make with regret. You tell yourself the opportunity will still be there. But the truth is, some doors don't stay open. Some windows close. Not because the world is cruel, but because you hesitated too long. You keep thinking you'll get another chance. But life doesn't promise that. Life offers this moment, this one, right now. That's all you're guaranteed, and if you're not using it, you're losing it. You're not waiting, you're wasting. That's the cost. Not just missed goals, but missed identity, missed purpose, missed life. Not because you failed, but because you kept telling yourself you'd start later. And then you look back and wonder where the time went. It didn't disappear. You gave it away 5 minutes at a time to things that didn't matter. And when you finally realized how much it cost, it was too late to buy it back. You'll never get today again. Not this exact energy, not this exact clarity, not this exact pull towards something meaningful. When you push it aside, you don't pause it. You erase it. So if there's something inside you, an idea, a goal, a conversation, a change, you've been putting off, you have two choices. You can keep waiting and hope it finds you again. Or you can honor it right now. Even if you're scared, even if you're not ready, even if the timing isn't perfect, because perfect timing is a myth. But missed time? That's real, and it's the one thing you can't get back. You get 24 hours a day. So does everyone else. The artists, the athletes, the leaders, the people who built what you admire, the ones who make it look easy, and the ones who barely survive. Same hours, same clock. The difference isn't the time. The difference is the ownership. Most people treat time like something that happens to them, like it's outside their control, like they're stuck in a current they can't steer. But that's not how time works. Time doesn't decide where it goes. You do. You choose what to say yes to. You choose what you allow to interrupt you. You choose what you commit to, what you avoid, what you delay, and what you prioritize every single day. But when life feels overwhelming, it's tempting to forget that. It's easier to blame the calendar than take responsibility for what you filled it with. You say you don't have time to take care of your body, but you're never late for a Netflix binge. You say your dreams matter, but you give your best energy to things you don't even believe in. You say your relationships are your top priority, but you scroll through strangers' lives more than you check in on the people you love. And when someone calls you out, you say, "I've just been busy." But busy is a choice. So is rest. So is avoidance. So is every single minute you give away without thinking. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire." You fear dying, but you live like time is unlimited. You dream big, but treat your hours like they're disposable. You don't need a longer day. You need a clearer direction. Because when you don't know what matters most, everything feels urgent. And when everything feels urgent, you spend your life reacting instead of living. So ask yourself, right now, what are you actually in charge of? Because if you don't feel in control of your time will start controlling you. And that's when life starts to feel like it's slipping. But the moment you reclaim your calendar, the moment you look at every hour like it's yours to own, not someone else's to steal, everything starts to change. You begin making decisions based on alignment, not pressure. You stop apologizing for saying no to things that don't serve you. You stop being surprised when your life starts moving in the direction you actually wanted it to go. Time doesn't need to be managed. It needs to be respected, and the person who respects it the most will always have enough of it. If you want to know who you really are, look at where your time goes, not what you say you care about, not what's written on your vision board or journal or goals list. Look at your actual hours. Look at what you do when nobody's watching, when nobody's asking, when it's just you and the clock. Time is the mirror that never lies. You can tell the world you value your health, but if your schedule doesn't reflect that, the truth shows up in the mirror. You can say your relationships mean everything to you, but if your calendar is filled with meetings, distractions, and mindless scrolling, time is telling a different story. That story isn't written in your words, it's written in your actions. And it hurts to look at it sometimes, because it shows you the gap between your intentions and your reality. It shows you the difference between what you say you're becoming and what you're actually building. But that's why it's powerful, because the mirror doesn't judge, it just reflects. And once you see clearly, you can change what you're looking at. You can realign, you can rebuild, you can make new choices with your eyes open. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to stop pretending. If you've been saying you don't have time, stop and ask yourself, what have I been making time for instead? Because time is always going somewhere, and wherever it goes, your life follows. The person who's always too busy becomes someone who's always behind. The person who always says, maybe later, becomes someone who runs out of laters. But the person who's brave enough to say, this matters more, they start living on purpose. They start living with intention. They start living a life that actually feels like theirs. You don't need to be rigid with your time. You just need to be honest with it. Because every hour you live is shaping your story. And no matter what you believe about yourself, time is showing you what you're becoming. So the question is simple. Do your days match your dreams? If not, the problem isn't time. It's the story you're telling with it. You've said it before. Everyone has. When I have time, I'll get to it. When things settle down, I'll start. When life gives me some space, I'll finally do the thing I've been meaning to do. But the truth is, that moment never arrives. Life doesn't slow down to give you permission. The world doesn't pause so you can chase your dreams. That day when everything is perfectly quiet and you feel fully ready, it's a fantasy. And deep down, you already know that. The phrase, "when I have time," is a lie we tell ourselves to avoid the fear of starting. It makes us feel safe. It makes inaction sound noble. It makes delay sound like patience. But it's not patience. It's avoidance. Buddha said, "The trouble is, you think you have time. That's the illusion. You assume the future will wait for you. But it doesn't. Time moves, whether you use it or not. And every time you say not now, you're gambling with your own potential. You don't find time. You make it. People wait for motivation, for clarity, for energy. But none of those things show up without action. They're created in the process. They grow when you begin. But if you keep waiting to feel ready, you'll wait forever. The ones who move forward, the ones who build, create, heal, transform, they didn't do it because they had more time. They did it because they stopped waiting. They started with what they had, right where they were, imperfect, uncertain, probably scared, but they moved, and that movement changed everything. So when you catch yourself saying, "When I have time," ask yourself, what am I really avoiding? Is it effort? Is it fear? Is it the possibility of failure? Or is it the responsibility that comes with becoming the person I know I could be? Because maybe it's not that you don't have time. Maybe you're just afraid to become the version of you who no longer has an excuse. And that version, the one who acts now instead of later, they live a very different life, a fuller one, a freer one. Not because they found the time, but because they finally chose to stop pretending it was missing. If you want to change your life, start by changing how you spend 1 hour. That's it. 1 hour. Not everything. Not your whole routine. Just 1 hour that you take back from chaos and give to something that matters. You don't need a perfect morning routine. You don't need to block off 10 hours a day. You just need to choose your time with intention. That's the difference between drifting and leading, between reacting to life and directing it. Most people move through their day on autopilot. They open their eyes and let the world tell them what to do. The phone rings, notifications pop, emails demand attention, and before they even finish their coffee, the day already feels lost. But it doesn't have to be like that. You can start your day by asking one question. If today were my last, how would I spend it? Not to scare yourself, but to sharpen your focus. Not everything will fit into the answer, but one thing should. One thing that matters more than the noise. One thing that will still matter a year from now. That's the thing you give your best hour to. And when you do, you take back your life in pieces. Small, consistent pieces. Choosing your hours doesn't mean becoming a machine. It doesn't mean cutting out joy or rest. It means becoming honest about what deserves space in your life and what doesn't. You get to decide every day who gets your time, what gets your energy, what habits get your attention, what vision gets your commitment. No one else is in charge. You probably spent years being available for everything but yourself. For every distraction, every emergency, every expectation that wasn't really yours to carry. But from this moment forward, that can change. You can become unavailable for chaos, unavailable for guilt, unavailable for habits that leave you empty. You can protect your peace the way you protect your passwords. You can say no. You can reclaim the hour that everyone else tried to steal. Because that hour, that's where your power lives. So start small. Start today. Pick 1 hour and make it sacred. Maybe it's writing. Maybe it's movement. Maybe it's silence. Maybe it's dreaming. Whatever it is, make it count. The rest of the world will wait, because when you stop living for what's urgent and start living for what's important, you don't just take control of your time, you take back your life. The way you think about time isn't just a mindset, it's a story. And like any story, it can be rewritten. Right now, the story you're living might sound like this: I'm always behind. There's never enough time. I can't catch up. I'm too busy for what really matters. It feels real. It sounds true, but it's not. It's just a script you've repeated so often, you've started to live it like a fact. But what if it's not a fact? What if it's just a habit? A habit of saying yes to the wrong things. A habit of choosing comfort over clarity. A habit of giving your time to everyone except the person staring back at you in the mirror. And if it's a habit, it can be broken. If it's a story, it can be rewritten. You don't need to keep playing the role of the overwhelmed, overcommitted, overextended version of yourself. That character isn't the only one available to you. You can write a new role, a new arc, a new voice that says something different. I decide what matters in my life. I create time for what feeds me. I protect my energy like it's sacred, because it is. I don't owe my time to anything that drains me. I am building a life that reflects my values, not my fears. This isn't about hustle. It's not about cramming more into your calendar. It's about alignment. It's about truth. It's about finally matching the life you say you want with the way you actually spend your hours. That new story doesn't start in your schedule. It starts in your mind. In the moment you decide that the old narrative of being too busy, too late, too behind isn't yours anymore. It was never you. It was just a mask. And now you're ready to take it off. So write a new time story, not with perfect routines or color-coded planners, but with choices, with presence, with conviction. You don't have to get it all right. You just have to stop getting it all wrong on autopilot. Start by speaking your new story out loud. Say it until it feels real. Live it until it becomes normal. Protect it like your future depends on it. Because it does. You are not the story of your past time. You are the story of what you choose next. It's easy to say, make time. It's harder to believe it's possible, especially when your life feels packed, your energy feels drained, and every day slips through your hands like sand. So let's make it real. There are people who had every reason to say, I don't have time. But they didn't. They chose differently, and that choice changed everything. Stephen King was working full-time, living in a trailer, raising kids, and writing at night in a tiny laundry room. He didn't wait for inspiration. He didn't wait for the perfect writing conditions. He carved out time because his story mattered to him more than his excuses. Maya Angelou used to rent hotel rooms just to write. She'd leave her home, strip away the distractions, and commit to showing up for her words. That was her sacred time. Created, not found. Protected, not borrowed. J.K. Rowling wrote the first chapters of Harry Potter in cafes while raising her child alone and living on government support. She didn't have time in the traditional sense, but she made it. Because when something is important, time isn't found, it's made. And it's not just famous names. There's the single mom who woke up 1 hour earlier every day to build her business before work. Now she runs it full time. The man who worked 12-hour shifts and wrote a book on his lunch breaks. The young woman who stopped binge watching shows and learned a new skill that changed her career. What do they all have in common? They didn't wait for time to appear. They decided that their goals, their purpose, their growth, those things were worth rearranging their life around. They saw time not as a prison, but as a resource. Not something to manage, but something to direct. They made small sacrifices that led to massive gains. They weren't better than you. They weren't luckier. They just made one different choice: to stop believing the lie that there's no time left. Because there's always time for what you decide matters most. You've seen the proof. It's everywhere. The question is no longer, can it be done? The question is, will you do it? Will you stop waiting for permission? Will you stop telling yourself the same tired story? Will you stop handing your life to distractions and start building something that actually belongs to you? No one is coming to hand you an extra hour, but you don't need one. You need the courage to take one back, because your future isn't hiding in more time. It's hiding in better choices. Time isn't just what you manage, it's what you're made of. Every minute you live becomes a piece of your story. Every hour is a building block in the life you're creating. And that's why this conversation matters. Because we're not just talking about minutes and schedules. We're talking about your life. When you say, I don't have time, you're not talking about a task. You're talking about a moment you chose to trade away. And the more you say it, the more those trades pile up until you look around and realize you've been giving away your life in exchange for nothing. Time is not separate from your existence. It is your existence. It's the invisible thread connecting who you are now to who you're becoming. And if you don't respect that thread, it frays. You start living in delay, in guilt, in apology. You keep putting your real life on pause, waiting for everything to settle down. But it never really does. The world stays noisy. The distractions never run out. The obligations don't disappear. So if you're waiting for perfect timing, stop. It's not coming. You create meaning by how you spend your hours. That's it. There's no shortcut, no workaround. And the truth is, no one can do it for you. Your parents can't. Your partner can't. Not your boss, not your mentor, not your friends. Only you can give your life its shape. And you do it one choice at a time. You won't always feel ready. You won't always feel motivated. But time doesn't care about your feelings. It moves, it flows, and it asks you to decide every day how much of your life you're willing to waste on things that don't matter. So stop thinking of time as something you spend. Start thinking of it as something you live. Because every second you're not present, every moment you don't own, every hour you don't claim, those are pieces of your life you don't get back. And at some point, the future you've been postponing becomes the past you can't change. But here's the good news. That moment hasn't arrived yet. You still have time. You still have now. So take it. Not just because it's wise, not just because it's urgent, but because it's yours.